We got started in this type of work understanding there was a large need for land management in a different way. We focus primarily on prescribed grazing with goats to manage vegetation in a way that really serves the ecology and works with nature. 10 years ago when we started running goats, it was definitely a left field idea for the Midwest. Over many years of trial and experimentation, we've been able to develop that practice. People are no longer skeptical of it, but actually can really truly see the value in putting animals back on the land. My name is Kyle Johnson. I'm co-founder of Diversity Landworks. People ask, why are we having goats on the land? So our landscape would have traditionally been managed with fire and animals for thousands of years. Large herds of animals were harvesting biomass. So a lot of the native species that we consider to be desirable actually co-evolved with those animals in that biological process of grazing. In the last couple hundred years, we've seen a large process of that ecology shifting and a lot of trees and brush growing in, which is the process of afforestation.
My name's Tim Taylor. I'm a co-founder of Diversity Landworks. Goats are just an amazing tool for tackling a lot of the problem plants we have here in the state of Minnesota, like yellow parsnip, multiflora rose, and primarily buckthorn. So the goats go in and they eat top down and clear out this woody invasive layer of plants that's shading out the native prairie plants, creating just a stagnant, bad environment for our native trees.
So just the oak alone can support over 300 different species of life that are actually dependent on that oak. And so if we get the shading out of that oak and we get the loss of those keystone species, we're seeing a massive reduction in the life supporting capacity of our lands. So keystone species will be the oak. So these oaks here, you can see they have these lower branches that are horizontal to the ground. That would indicate that 100 years ago, this would have been an open environment. There would not have been all these smaller trees in between. And so the oak is a great example of a keystone species. The bison would have been a keystone species. And we're losing them. We've lost our bison, and now we're losing our oaks. We lose the keystone manager, which would be the grazer, so we're going to lose the species that those keystone managers would have promoted and taken care of. Here we have the prairie oak savanna, and we lose our grazing keystone species, the bison. Left ungrazed, invasive plants like buckthorn take over, shading out and killing the native prairie vegetation. Goats can come in and eat the leaves. This forces the plant to use energy from its root reserve to refoliate the stems, reducing plant vigor. When this process is repeated, it will eventually kill the target plant, exposing the ground to sunlight and allowing native plants to return, restoring balance to the ecosystem. So we are utilizing prescribed grazing with goats to mimic and replicate the prior land management tools, which were wild animals grazing. These invasive species are reducing diversity and life-supporting capacity of our ecosystems. We value regenerative processes, so we look at nature for guidance. Using animals is a great way to work with nature on nature's terms. We look at the devolution of our landscapes into a more afforested, woody environment, and that's taken some time. That's taken a couple hundred years sometimes. Goats will work on the land, slowly change it, slowly retip that balance back to a ecological homeostasis. We can make a more lasting, meaningful impact if we're working with nature's timeline.
contract with a variety of types of land managers. We work with private individuals, private landowners, and quite a bit with government from local, county, city, park organizations, state and federal.
So we're at the Choice Wildlife Management Area near Mabel, Minnesota. The restoration work is funded and organized by the Nature Conservancy here. And the goats are managing this oak savanna on a south-facing steep hillside. They're managing the brush up here. So there's 90 goats out here, and we make our stocking rate based on our paddock size. So if we have about 20 acres here and we want to move through it in about a certain amount of time, we kind of know what our stocking rate needs to be. We don't like to overstock. If you overdo it, you'll put a quick stress on the plants, but it'll resprout quickly. So having this sort of perfect balance between impact of how many animals and the paddock size is something that we've really got dialed in. Out of the 90 goats, we have basically 3 groups of types of goats that are in here. We have our wethers, so those are just boy goats. And we have does and we have kids. That builds a pretty good balance of herd dynamics. If we had a group out here of all boys or all does, it seems like they get a little more wild, so we try and have a balanced herd. It just seems to keep everybody in check.
Right, you know, you can see they're in here amongst the oaks right now, getting that brush layer down, and their body conditions just all look great. For all of our different work sites, we carefully pick our goat roster. At this site, it's a much bigger, more wild site, so we picked a lot of our more rugged, independent goats that are a lot more self-sufficient. And when we do work in the metropolitan area, we'll select for goats that are a lot more people-friendly, calm, and maybe not as well suited to a more rugged place like this. But as you can see, they're just loving it out here. They sleep out on the cliffs, and they've got little caves they can go into to get out of the rain, and they're just thriving out here.
We have an intimate understanding of the different best management practices that can be used in land management. As the first goat company in Minnesota and one of the first in the Midwest using prescribed grazing, a lot of these best management practices have had to come from us just getting out there and experimenting. We've developed those management practices, and we can understand intricacies that each site requires. We're able to implement our goat grazing in conjunction with more conventional practices to get just a higher quality result.
This job entails quite a bit of planning, consideration of timing, depending on the site, the types of species that's there, the type of problem we're addressing. Setting up that plan, and then physically setting up the goats.
Go to work.
So we go out and we clear a fence line, oftentimes on bluffs like these, where the paddock area may be 40 acres, maybe more. And we'll go in and clear a fence line and then set up a electro net fence, which is there to keep the goats in, but primarily to keep predators out to protect the goats.
So we roll a lot of fence, roll out a lot of fence, roll up a lot of fence. We probably set up about 10 miles of fence every month and take it down. And so you get to be fast at it. And the time to beat for a 164-foot section of fence is 77 seconds. One of the amazing benefits of using prescribed grazing is it's very scalable. So if you have a back woodlot, a small neglected piece of land, you can put some goats there that are going to be managing that land to reduce that brush load. And as we've seen, we've built our herds to encompass hundreds of goats, and we can impact hundreds of acres. And as we move into thousands of goats, we'll be able to impact thousands of acres.
Everybody likes goats. and or most everybody. I really love goats. They're just really fun. They all have distinct personalities, but they all want to be in a herd together. They say you should never have just one goat, and we have a lot more than one goat.
In general, the last 100 years, we've abandoned the land and neglected it. Interacting with that land, putting animals on it in a healthy way, is what we have always done, and it's what has always supported us. So it's all about being involved, being an active participant in the ecology. A healthy landscape is a landscape that's full of diversity. Clean water, bountiful lands, healthy ecosystems. If we can assist in that process, then we're going to be healthy too.